For someone who is not a lawyer or who is not familiar with legal reasoning, you will think that when a person has been convicted of a crime and sent to prison, that he has no further rights on the law. You will think that what the person deserves is to be killed, and that was it. But that is wrong, actually. The way to know the level of civilization of a country depends on how such country treats its prisoners. Today, Nnamdi is a prisoner, and he is in prison, having been convicted by a court of competent jurisdiction. Let me say something further before I go on. I find Justice Omotosho to be one of the finest judges in this country. My Lord Omotosho was brilliant, he was patient, he was careful, he was considerate, and extremely humane. I have the highest respect for him. And I think that his judgment was sound. But I still consider the case a very unique case. A case of special circumstances. At this moment, Nnamdi is serving his term in prison. But there is a lingering question which we must address. The decision to move Nnamdi to Sokoto prison comes with a lot of concerns. Yes, it is true that when a person is sentenced, he becomes essentially the responsibility of the correctional service. And the correctional service can move him anywhere they like. I know about the case of Charles Oka. Charles Oka was convicted and sentenced in Kuje. But Charles Oka caused so much problems, so a lot of problems while in Kuje prison, including a plan to explode a bomb in the prison. Charles Oka was so disruptive that the prison services decided to move him to a prison in Maiduguri. As hard and as harsh as that was, it will seem justified because he was extremely disruptive while in Kuje prison. Sending Nnamdi to Sokoto has no justification, and it was not a decision made by the judge himself. All the judge said, all Justice Omotosho said in his judgment was that he should not be in Kuje prison. But he did not choose the prison where he should go. So when they decided to move him to Sokoto, instead of other possible places, that was a decision that was made by the executive arm of government, that is, the correctional service. The question is, yes, they can move him anywhere. But that doesn't answer the question. I have seen a lot of people say, oh no, but the prison service have right to move him anywhere they like, anywhere. Yes, that is true. But that statement actually begs the question. Why does it beg the question? Because then we can ask, if they could send him anywhere in the country, why didn't they send him to Lagos? Why didn't they send him to Jos? Why didn't they send him to Kefi prison? Why? Why Sokoto? In any event, a fundamental issue that will arise from this is, what about Nnamdi's right to pursue an appeal? His right to appeal is an integral part of his rights to fair hearing and due process. It is an integral part of the question of access to justice. He has to initiate his appeal from the Abuja branch of the Court of Appeal, Abuja division of the Court of Appeal. Many people who don't know the legal system or the law have said, oh, there is an appeal court in Sokoto, but it doesn't work that way. Appeal court in Sokoto is responsible for certain high courts that are within its jurisdiction. Appeal Court Division in Abuja is the appeal court responsible for the decision made by the Federal High Court Abuja. You cannot take a decision, a judgment by the Federal High Court of Abuja and to any appeal court you want. No, the law doesn't allow that. Each appeal court has a territory. Its territorial jurisdiction, only judgments from that area can come to that court of appeal, the other division. So Nnamdi will be filing his appeal in Abuja. And since he represents himself, and the same court allowed him to represent himself even to the point of going to deliver a letter at the Supreme Court, it is assumed that he should be able to file his notice of appeal. That is justice for him. If he cannot do so for any reason, that means he has lost access to justice. So, keeping him in Sokoto is going to pose a number of challenges. How will he access the court in Abuja? Will the government be flying him in and out of Abuja each time? So I think that a number of things could happen. Either that the defense Nnamdi says he's not available, maybe he will send his consultants to submit a letter or ex parte application to the judge to see if he could make an order, custodial order, requesting for him to be brought back to somewhere within Abuja, or as close as possible to Abuja. Of course, the judge already said he shouldn't be in Kuje. The judge cannot vary that now, because that has been part of his judgment. He's now functus officio as regards that particular pronouncement. But on the question of taking him to Sokoto, that was not in the judgment of the court. It was a discretion exercised by the Correctional Service. And perhaps, I'm going to look at it, perhaps within Nigeria jurisdiction, there is what we call post-judgment proceedings. That is the residual rights a judge has to make orders concerning a case that had already closed. I don't know whether this exists, but if there is a possibility of post-judgment procedure, they should approach the court requesting the grace of my Lord Justice Omotosho for this prisoner or convict to be somewhere within Abuja so he can access the courts in Abuja. And I know from what I have seen, Justice Omotosho is a very kind man. If the law allows him to exercise that discretion, he will do so. He will likely do so, because he doesn't harbor hatred or ill will towards anybody. The critical thing is, let him have right of appeal. He wants to appeal, okay, let him be able to appeal. Let's not put him in a place where he cannot appeal. That would be like denying him access to justice. As I have indicated earlier, the evidence in the case against Nnamdi Kanu is overwhelming. It doesn't matter how many times you retry this case, he will probably be convicted each time. That is not the question. Indeed, for me to be able to predict that he will be convicted, that meant that I had taken very close look at the evidence before the court. And I believe what happened in this case that led to him firing his lawyers was because those lawyers told him the truth. Chief Agabi must have told him the truth, that the evidence is so heavy, there's nothing we can do to save you. Anything we can do must be post-judgment procedure. Post-judgment procedure was appellate procedure and political solutions, things that will happen after judgment had occurred. And the Nnamdi must have felt, well, if they're going to convict me, I want to go down fighting. I want to go down making pronouncements. I want to go down. So instead of allowing his lawyers to be gentle about the process that will lead to his conviction, he decided to fight. My only problem was that he fought very poorly. He fought very poorly. I don't know why he abandoned his defense. So it's a very intricate thing. All those people say, kill him, kill him, kill him. That's not my notion of justice. That is actually jungle justice. One of the women who shouted at me yesterday was insisting that the only thing she wanted was the head of Nnamdi. Nnamdi said should be caught. I said, this is ridiculous. The court already gave death sentence, so you can't cut any head. I mean, judge already gave life sentence, ruling out the possibility that he will be killed. That's not what the judgment is. So this notion of killing him is no longer there. So we got to be realistic. We have to try to follow this law without emotions. The problem is our emotional attachment. You hate him enough, you want him to die. Or you love him enough, you want him to be released. That is emotions. All those are emotional reactions. You're not supposed to hate him. You're not supposed to love him. Just focus on the law and ask yourself what is possible given the state of the law and given the state of the facts. That's what it is. If we can push away sentiments and emotions, we'll understand the legal process, we'll understand the case, we'll understand the judgment. Okay, so I saw Maxwell, famous Maxwell. He was in Sokoto and talking about all these things. Well, I hope they work hard and get the case back to Abuja where it will be done. Okay? And even though he's been sentenced, he's still entitled to family visits. Yeah, prisoners entitled to family. Once the judge sentences you, you are an inmate, you're entitled to all the rights of inmates. We don't have worse inmates who is not entitled to the same rights. So it's very important. What I think is going to hurt Nnamdi the most, though, is this denial of electronic access. That is profound. Profound. So, but you can't blame the judge. This is a judge that spared him from death penalty. So, if he was given death penalty, that would still have denied him access to electronic distance. So the judge was, the judge was nice. You can't blame him at all. And I think he could be further nice if they approach him and request for Nnamdi to be returned to Abuja area. You have Kefi prison, you have Suleja prison. Even though those prisons are not maximum security prison, they are not, they're porous, but something could be done. That's what I think they would do. Otherwise, I can see them asking the Court of Appeal to make an order, interim order, for him to return to Abuja. Because it's a fundamental right question, access to justice, Section 36, okay? Fundamental right question. It can be addressed, all right? I hope that happens. And I hope there will be justice, comprehensive justice in Nigeria, so that everybody will be taken care of, including the victims. I want to make sure that the victims are adequately compensated. And I want to make sure that all those who are still perpetrating the crimes are identified and held accountable, so there can be peace in the Southeast. I hope so. On that note, thank you so much. We're going to continue the further episode later in the day. And when we get there, perhaps it is time for us to examine this comparison you had always been making. Oh, what about the bandits in the north? What about Boko Haram in the north? We're going to look into that to try to answer the questions you are raising, even though we believe that violence in the north does not justify violence in the east. And I believe that we don't have to solve the problem, all other problems involving violence before we solve the problem of IPOB. We can start with IPOB. And from there we can go on. If we finish with IPOB, we can start dealing with Boko Haram. Okay? And the bandits. Thank you. God bless. Yes, somebody wants to ask a question. Morgan, the money bank. What's your question? Can you ask a question? Ifeanyi Kemezie says terrorists are not supposed to have rights. Yes, you may think so, but that is not true. A terrorist is, once convicted, he is a prison inmate. Once convicted, is a prison inmate. And remember, he's got right to pursue an appeal. Yes, Morgan, what's your question? You want to ask if you can? You asked if you can ask a question. Yes, you can. Yes, Haruna, I agree with you. The case of Nnamdi Kanu exposed the shallowness of IPOB members, but not just that, the shallowness of a lot of people. I'm surprised by the things I read. Even people I thought were not IPOB members, regular, ordinary Igbo men and women, their reactions are very shocking to me, extremely shocking to me. You know?
In the heart of the city where stories unfold, Gentle Media TV shining bright and bold, bringing news from the corners of the globe, connects us together, no matter the road. Watch us rise, hear the voices roar, unity and diversity, together we